Hello, everybody, and welcome yet to another episode of the In Alignment podcast. And today, again, I will be your host, Cami. And today, this is a really exciting episode for me. And if you have listened to the previous, or one of the announcement episode, I believe, I did mention that I will be bringing more of these conversation, more of like extraterrestrial, alien, or interdimensional or energy conversations. And I'm so happy that today I was able to connect with this lovely person. Her name is Ashley Dawn. Is it Ashley Dawn? Actually, it is, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Ashley Dawn. And because sometimes I still have like my French brain in the morning. So sometimes I'm like, did I say that correctly? And she is a YouTuber, but more than that, she is a fellow light worker, I would say. And it's really interesting the way that I discovered her, because it's one of those moments that when you are focused on, you know, your purpose, your mission, whatever, if you're conscious about what you are creating in the world, you just end up finding things, people, and attracting exactly people or things that are of the same frequency. So she basically, I found her through a conversation where I wasn't even looking for her, actually. And it was with a friend. I sent him a video and he sent me the same video, and he told me to watch it at a specific time. And then they were talking about indigo children, and this person who mentioned something about indigo children, I didn't really quite resonate. So then I took it upon myself to look for another link that would explain it better, the way that I felt, you know, that resonated better in my being. And that's how I found Ashley Dawn. I found her video on Starseeds children, which I will definitely link because she has a great explanation. And you know, it was one of those moments that for me, when I saw her, even just like watching her video, I was like, I see you. We must have the same people. Like, we talk to the same source. Just the way that she explained it, but even like, I don't know, just the energy and the way that you even express yourself, it really made sense to me. Like, it really hit home. And so I was like, hey, why don't I reach out to her, see if she would be willing to come on the podcast and have more of this conversation. But really, the other thing is that my goal and my intention is that for people who may identify as these starseed children, people, beings, and you've had a challenging time in your life and you don't know maybe how to navigate in life because you feel a little bit different, I really hope that we can bring you some better understanding, like some clarity, some comfort, some tools, give you some tools and tips so that you can feel better about your being and just get back to that connection of who you truly are. So on that note, Ashley, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, I am so excited to be here, and I think it is by divine guidance, because yeah, we got a chance to like connect a little bit, and just kind of in our conversations, it was really clear that we are definitely connecting to similar guides and getting similar messaging and all of that. So that's awesome. So I'm so grateful for you know, to be here, and that you reached out, and that we can actually do this today, because I think, you know, this is something that a lot of people can really resonate with, this topic, because it's either the person like you or I that probably was this starseed growing up and feeling this way, and many other people, but also if they don't resonate with that as if they don't recognize that within themselves, you know, there's a lot of like parents or people that are like, oh my gosh, my kid is doing this exact same thing. And so I think that it really kind of reaches a lot of people, and that they kind of resonate with that this video, and kind of breaking it down and explaining it, I think really helps for them to kind of see themselves and identify certain aspects of their really like divine wisdom within them that in the beginning stages just feels awkward or feels like, you know, like you're alone, like you're the only one that kind of acts or thinks this way. And so yeah, I think it's a really neat topic, because I think it kind of makes you connect more with like that sovereign being of self and that divinity within yourself, because you're finding that validation.
Yes.
You know, through this. So I think this will be a really exciting podcast and video.
Yes.
And I'm excited to kind of explain a little bit of, you know, all of these characteristics, these star seeds, the indigo, the crystal child, and the rainbow, but even kind of dive into my channelings and things of even more interesting hybrid, we'll say, things to come, children to come. So yeah, I'm super excited.
So do you want to start by maybe share a little bit about your journey and how you came into, let's say, alignment with your spiritual guides or these channelings, or even like the way you, like your way of moving through this life? Like how did that come about? Like, who are you? How did you, what influenced you?
Right. So I now in my current state, I am a light worker. I am a Reiki master. I'm a medium. I do a lot of healing type work, be it physical, mental, emotional, spiritually. I feel like it's my life purpose to be of service. So I have spent pretty much my adult life trying to find ways to incorporate all different types of wellness, mastering as many as I can, and really just being of service. And so that comes in many forms. That comes in me being an author. That comes in me being, you know, working with people one-on-one and doing videos and all kinds of things. And so it makes perfect sense, I think, if I look back on, you know, the child I was and how I am now, you know, that kind of transition it made perfect sense. And I think that a lot of starseeds will probably resonate with that too. So yeah, I think as a kid, I was a little awkward or weird in that I could pick up on or sense or feel the emotions of the space I was in. So the environment, the room, and also the people I was interacting with. But being young and not understanding energy very well, I didn't understand that at the time. And so sometimes, you know, I could be hanging around somebody that was in a bad mood, and I would be instantly in a bad mood. Or I could walk into an empty room and I would feel that that space was negative or positive, or like somebody could have had an argument and walked out of that room, and I would walk in and feel that weirdness, and it was an empty room. So I'm like, why would I feel weird walking into this room? And so I think that that sensitivity was probably really the first thing that I noticed, but it took me a while, like early adult, before I realized that I needed to adjust some of my energetic boundaries so that I could distinguish between my own energy and the energy around me, or the energy of another person. And fine tuning that really helped me to be a really good, you know, energy worker, because now I know what is mine and what is somebody else's, and I can kind of distinguish those and, you know, pick up on, you know, what they're thinking and feeling, and what's out of balance and what needs to be brought back into balance. And so those skills were there early on. I just didn't know how to use them. So I always say I had all of the ingredients, I just didn't have the recipe. And so it was kind of like, and I think we all do, we like all have our abilities and our gifts and our skills. We have all the ingredients, we just don't know how to put them together to make something. And so it just takes time. But then there's people like you and I that are willing to share, you know, so that we're like, hey, this was my recipe, maybe yours is very similar, you know.
So when you were younger and you were, let's say, walking into these places, did you feel that you were not that energy, or did it actually consume you and you became that energy? Because what I mean is, like, for me personally, like I guess my journey would be like, just when I think right now, my biggest challenge was like my relationship with my dad. And that's when we only came here to Canada. There was such contrast and such emotional challenge when like between my dad and I, but only on my side. I don't know what he went through, but from my end. And you know, I remember feeling like I actually hated this person, but at the same time it felt so uncomfortable. Like this feeling of hate felt so uncomfortable that it was almost like I could sense that it's not that I hate him, there's something here that I'm experiencing that isn't right. And I need to figure out what's happening, because it felt like what I'm feeling, truly feeling inside, and what is actually, you know, coming about, or like in my reality didn't match. And I was like, I don't understand this thing. Like, it's really uncomfortable, and I need to figure out, like, I know it's not him, but at the same time, I can't help but to feel hate towards him. And at the same time, I'm like, oh, but there's something wrong here. This is not it. So did you have something similar, or were you actually being consumed in the feelings that you were like I guess the feelings that you were in the space in which you were?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, I was definitely kind of consumed by them. And then I started to realize that I could pick up on other things. And I realized that it was a major part of how I communicated. And so I think one of my biggest aha moments was I was a teenager, and I was going to a funeral, and it was a friend of mine, their grandparent, who I had met, you know, a couple of times, not close to them at all, but I was just there in support of my friend. And before everybody got there, I was helping them, you know, with certain things, like, you know, moving some things around, chairs, things like that. And there was a time where I was in the room alone with the casket, and I was at such peace. Like, I felt there was this really good human being, lived this long, beautiful life, was so loved, and had come to the end of their, you know, physical life cycle. And so I had this like really sense of peace, you know. And then as the funeral began and people started to enter into this space, I began to have such a heaviness and a grief, and I began to cry, like almost uncontrollably, like I couldn't catch my breath, like I was like, and I realized, like, I felt that I was not in control of this emotion, but I didn't feel like that a minute ago. And I started to realize that, you know, this maybe wasn't mine, but I didn't know how to control it. And I actually had to step out of the room. And as soon as I did, I was fine. But the more and more people that came into the room, and the more people that were grieving, I felt like I was bathing in this grief, and I couldn't like get away from it or get it off of me. But when I walked away, I was then back to myself. Like, I could find that normalcy and that peace. And so that was one of the big aha moments for me. And then it kind of all clicked, and I realized how many times had I been in a place, or let's say a mild disagreement, and I felt their frustration and my frustration, and then it amplified. So then maybe how many times did I respond in an overreaction way, because I was feeling double, you know? And so that was kind of, you know, that was an interesting experience. And I started to realize, like, hey, this is a way that I experience my reality. It's through being sensitive and feeling these emotions, but there has to be an energetic boundary. There has to be a healthiness to this. There has to be a way where I can sense and feel what somebody is, you know, feeling and going through without it affecting me, because it's not my burden carry. It's not my grief. It's not my, you know, situation. And so it's okay to feel it and be sensitive, but not take it on as if it was my own. Yeah. And so that was like, and that was a teenager. I was really like, holy cow. Like, I realized that I had to kind of rethink and readjust my connections around me and the spaces that I was in and the people I was with. I had to figure out a way to set a boundary to where I could see it and not be so inundated that it really affected me and my health, you know? And so, that was, I would say it kind of consumed me for a while until I figured it out a little bit, you know?
I feel like that's something like a lot of maybe people who are spiritual, or who are just like sensitive, they might relate to, because I remember even for me, I've never really been consumed by emotions, like other people's emotions per se, but my issue was more along the lines of, you know, I would feel, it was having two different conversations. It's like I would feel people's truth, but then when they would talk to me, they would say different.
Doesn't
they would
match.
say something, it didn't match. And then for me, because my expression, I've always sought to express my truth and to be honest and transparent. And it's almost that, you know, how you reflect how your own being onto other people. And so them saying something different would cause so much doubt in me, because I will be like,
Yes.
well, you know, I might be feeling this, but this person is saying otherwise, and I know they wouldn't lie to me. So, you know, so maybe I'm wrong. And that would create like so much just doubt and confusion, because I didn't understand how to, I guess, how to translate, in a sense, that conversation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like the more that so what was it for you that you, like, what helped you translate, you know, all these things? Like what helped you really saying like, this is mine, this is not mine, or,
Yes.
and understand, or like respecting people's journeys really, and where they're
Right.
at, without undermining your own.
Right. And so one of the easiest tools or analogies that I'll give is, and this is something that I definitely talk to clients about, especially if they are children, because a lot of parents will, you know, see the video and want to reach out, and they're like, hey, my kid, like, I don't know how to deal or handle with this. Like, what suggestions do you have? And this is one of my biggest ones, is I tell people to visualize like a glowy, you know, white light or a bubble. I call it bubbling up. And so I'm like, put a little bubble around yourself. This is your happy place. There's great music. It's safe. It's comfortable. Like, this is really you, like who you really are. Like, your soul and divinity resides in this space. But I tell them to create this bubble in a way to where you can see out, right? Like almost as if it was like a glass window.
Yeah.
If it was a window, you could see through it. You could see that the sun was shining. And in fact, the sun could come through that window and warm that space. And you could allow that positivity, that brightness in. But if the weather outside started to shift and it started to rain and it started to get a little ugly outside, you don't get wet.
Yeah.
You can see it, and it's okay for you to experience it in that way, to see it, but you do not have to take it on. And what that does is it creates a sense of what is mine and what's yours is yours.
Yeah.
And it really helps to give us a sense of empowerment, because especially when we're really young, especially when I'm talking to kids, it's like they feel like they don't have the tools to feel like they're in control. So they feel like they're feeling all these emotions, and it's so overwhelming. And so this is a way for them to be like, no, this is mine. This is where I sit. This is my normal. When I feel another emotion, I can then check in with myself and be like, is that how I feel? Or am I feeling that is a response from someone else or from somewhere else? And it gives them that control to be like, oh, okay, to check in and be like, oh, I see it. I'm feeling it emitting off of this other person. So I am feeling it, but it is not mine. And I feel like that is super helpful.
Yeah. And I think it's like really important. Like, anybody can do this, because I know, like, for me, I'm very much, I found out that I'm very much motivated by fear, or fear and pain, but more pain than fear. And what I mean by that is that I don't have a lot of pain. Like, I don't really have anything I can say, whoa, this was like a huge suffering, or I was in pain. But when I see it, like through my meditations, those are the places and spaces I will go to. And it just, like, I don't know, it just gives me a different type of understanding of how people are, or how we operate as humans. And then that's kind of like what motivates me to want to serve, because I know that people are in pain and they're suffering. And I know that, you know, like, even sometimes I see people, the way that they react, and then I see how their environment will kind of, that dynamic, how they will react to that person, you know, pointing fingers at me like, you shouldn't be doing this, and da 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 da. But I can see that the person who first reacted, it's like, it's not them. Like, not to give them excuses, but it's not them. They're just overpowered by their emotions, by feelings, by things that they have been taken on for so many years that they don't know any better. And even more so for children, because they have like no filter, and it's just like they literally become, you know, these emotions that sometimes we don't see, or we're not aware of. So,
and that's exactly why I made that original video, because I felt like it's, you know, there's power in knowledge and understanding self more. Meditation and all the things that we do to connect with self and understand ourselves really helps to raise our vibration. And in doing so, that pulls that power back to us, you know? And I think exactly what you were just saying is, you know, a child, for example, you know, think of an animal when it's much younger, like a baby or a toddler or a young animal. It has to rely on its senses because it doesn't have a defense most of the time, right? They're very vulnerable. So children are, we'll say, hypersensitive to emotion because they don't have the ability to get up and run or to, you know, to defend themselves. And so they are very sensitive to their environment and what's going on, but they don't yet have the understanding or the knowledge to name or claim that emotion. So they will feel an emotion of, let's say, you know, when a child goes through that like mind phase where everything's mine, you know?
Yeah.
Part of that is because they're trying to, you know, their emotion is, hey, I like that object that you have. If it's fun in your hands, I want that too. They're navigating through emotions of maybe jealousy or wanting attention or wanting to be included. And there are all these emotions that they haven't quite yet understood. And so they're navigating emotions for the first time. And so it's kind of like, you know, children will over respond, I'll say. I don't want to say overreact, but they will over respond because emotions are very intense. And this is how we experience our reality here on the earth plane and in our human form, is through emotion. Emotion releases chemicals in our brain, and those chemicals have a biochemical reaction. And then we change physically. You know, we release epinephrine and norepinephrine or go into fight or flight or all these things based on that thought and emotion. And so, you know, they're experiencing all of these really intense things for the first time. And especially if they are more empathic, so that they can feel their environment and they can feel people around them, they're going to feel it more like double.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah, it can be very overwhelming, I think. And I think that's where most starseeds start, is feeling this overwhelmingness of many things, emotions, and not really understanding all the things that they're feeling or thinking. Yeah.
So going back to our actual topic, starseeds, what are starseeds? How do you, what's a definition? How can we define them? What are they?
So the idea of a starseed is that in your true form, your light body form, so non-human form, your soul, all of you wrapped up, your wisdom of every life you've ever lived, all wrapped up in a light body. At some point, you may have had, this light body may have had many, many lives, some that are non-human. So we will say in a different life, in a different form, technically that would be an alien form. And so a starseed is considered someone that has this almost like longevity or lineage of many past lives, lots of wisdom. They typically come here with a mission, usually to serve, usually to help raise the vibration of humanity, to help heal other people or whatever they are called to do. But usually they feel compelled to create a sense of harmony or peace or unity or accomplish something that is going to better the lives of many. And so starseeds kind of come in a step ahead because they feel that they have a purpose. They're here for a reason. They know it. They haven't maybe quite figured it out, but starseeds have a little bit of a stronger antenna, I'll say, to their higher self or to their guides. Their frequency is a little bit more fine-tuned. And when they really learn how to heal themselves, work through any traumas, to raise their vibration, man, they are really tuned in, and they can really get a lot of information or downloads or manifest things and really start paving the way for themselves and other people, helping to like awaken other people so that they can step into their full potential as well. And so starseeds are a really unique version of human maybe. But the idea is that they have come in waves. And my theory is that they started off like around in the 80s coming in as indigo children. And that was their name given. And they had these really unique attributes or characteristics. Sometimes they're kind of known as like the mover and the shaker. They're kind of have this personality where they don't really like old systems. They don't like things being in a box. They're really the first to like push back and say things, you know, like, that's not working. We don't need to do this, but why? You know, they're questioning. They're the ones that are kind of pushing back. They're usually very empathic or psychic, but because of that, they can really get overwhelmed very easily. Exactly what we were just talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the really interesting things that I mentioned in my video was that the University of Chicago in the 80s did a study on these children that were coming in, like this very wise group of children. And in fact, they recognized that about 70% of children born in that time frame had two unique chemicals. One was called microcepharon, and the other one was ASPM. And these chemicals actually help to regrow and regulate brain growth. So they were noticing actual physiological changes, like a hybrid human, we'll say, like an advanced, you know, and I mean, we are in the animal species, so it is by our design to adapt over time and adjust. And so this may have been something like that, but they noticed that there was these two chemicals present. And about 70% of them had at least one, 30% of them had both. And of that 30%, their IQ was extremely high. Average IQ is about 1 to 110. Geniuses are 110 to 130. And most of these kids were scoring 100 to 150. They got their name, the Indigo children. The next group would be the crystal children. They say that they come in around the 90s. I'm going to say that don't get too hung up on like the years, the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, because I'm noticing a lot of people may have popped in, you know,
before, after, or still are coming in. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But the majority of them, we'll say into the 90s, and they were more of this like, compassionate, nurturing, healing, soft-natured. They're the lover, like not the fighter. You know, they're not going to be the ones to rock the boat. They're going to be the ones to step back and help heal the situation. The Indigo is coming in like a, you know, barrel. They're coming in like, you know, hot, and they're like, we're not going to take it anymore. And the crystal children are more like, all right, let's just like, you know, peace and love and meditate on this for a minute, you know. So they're very polar opposite. And so they have this very yin yang complementary to them, because you kind of need somebody to stand up and point out that this isn't working anymore. Yeah. Which creates a lot of frustration and anger and pushback. And but in the flip side, you also need to go within and ask yourself why, and how am I contributing to the to continuing along that path, or how am I going to heal to not create the same mistakes? You know, you need that nurturing quality. And so then enters in, you know, the rainbow children, which were kind of more in the 2000s, and they really got a little bit of everything. They can see that it's not working. They understand there needs to be changes and healing, and they actually have a grasp on the bigger picture. They're looking and focusing on things like global oneness. How are plants and animals being affected? What's going on with our planet and the earth? They're looking at future and that kind of sense of unity, coming together, working together. They're recognizing that things need to change, but they're kind of the ones that are ready to bring everybody together. And so there's kind of these, and it's interesting because each one of them kind of rolls into the next. And so we have to almost have each of these kind of groups, right, of children. And so I think it's just really fascinating to, and I feel like we've all either really identify with one, but I also feel as we individually develop and raise our vibration and become, you know, more in tune with ourselves and connected to our guides, we almost individually go through each one of these, you know, so because I can relate to all of them. I can relate to all of them. And I think a lot of starseeds that are more maybe mature really can, you know, the adults in listening to this podcast are probably like, that's all of me. I'm all of them. So it's really kind of neat to see how as humanity, I'll say, as the collective needs these shifts and changes,
Mm-hmm.
enter in this group, enter in this group. You know, you got the mover, the shaker, the healer, and now they come together. And so it's this really interesting dynamic
Mm-hmm.
of moving forward and moving in a direction that, you know, makes more sense, I think.
I feel like for me, the way that I experience some of these things, it feels like everything really exists in a state of balance, right? But we kind of fail to recognize what that balance is. And
Yes.
how that balance will come about will be different expressions, different manifestations. And like for me, when I was meditating on these, I guess these definitions, like, so first of all, star seeds for me, it does feel like, you know, how a little bit like what you're saying, like a soul that has maybe either had a lot of different types of experiences, different types of manifestation that wasn't necessarily in a physical human form. And once they come here on earth, because of all that accumulated knowledge and wisdom and experience, they kind of choose to come and elevate, you know, the collective human consciousness. But once you come here, because you are so light in matter, it's almost like you have a contract or you have an agreement and you're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to choose this section of consciousness to elevate. And so oftentimes that will be something that when you come in the physical body, it might feel like something that, you know, that is a challenge, an obstacle, something you're struggling with, but at the same time, that is your blessing. It's like what you came here to transcend and how you came here to serve, right? And so, but because you might be more of a starseed, then you have that that call in your heart that it will be stronger. It's like it's more difficult to ignore your intuition, to ignore that calling in your heart, because even when you're at your lowest, there's something that is always going to call you, and you're like, I don't know how, but I need to get over this, or I need to move past, like how I need to figure something out, you know? And so for indigo children, for me, indigo, like the what they show me is like just blue, right? The color indigo. And in my meditations and in the beings that I meet, when a being's expression is in blue, for me, it's actually one of the purest kind of love that I have met. But it's a different expression. It's definitely love, but it's like a deep love. And it's just, I don't know how quite to explain it, but indigo children to me feel like a time when, let's say, past or post the Second World War, when things were like in shambles and things were not, you know, people had to be very reactive because they were in survival mode, right? And then so maybe around like the children of the baby boomers, when they came to this world, it was kind of like to awaken us and to be like, yeah, okay, that was great. We just went through a war, but this is not the way to be. So let me just change everything. And it might have been a bit violent to kind of shake people out of their belief system and their construct. And so there was like a lot of movements that happened in that time to kind of wake us up and being like, hey, this is not it, guys. This is not it, you know?
Right.
And then if you didn't get it, then there were like the wave of the crystal children. And crystal to me, like they just showed me that, like a crystal, and a crystal just will reflect everything, right? And that feels like less confrontational. Yeah, less confrontational. And more of a, hey, okay, this is not working. We don't need to be in war. Like I'm not going to be confrontational about it, but I'm just here to point out that this is not working. Maybe we can do this, or maybe we can do that. Or, hey guys, actually we need to meditate a bit more. You know, let's normalize meditation. Let's normalize going to therapy. Let's normalize this thing, because this is actually what we need. And then you have the rainbow children, which is just like, I don't know, they're just like, it's almost like they encompass all that, all the colors, all everything. And it's like, hey, they kind of feel like either like the end of millennials or the beginning of the next generation. Like, is it Gen Z? Gen Z? And where they just come in and they kind of know what they want to do, and it's like they're not being, you know, apologetic about it. It's like, hey, I want to do this. If you've been like working hard your whole life and that works for you, that's great. I will honor that. That may not be what works for me, but I know that this is more efficient, and I need to take care of my body. I need to take care of this, you know, the whole environment. I need to be more, I don't know, conscious about everything. They just naturally are more conscious about everything that relates to them, their existence, but also the planet, kind of like what you were saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think too, because of that, I think they're often misunderstood. I think they're perceived as lazy.
Yes.
Or, for example, they may not take the traditional, let's go to college, get a 4-year degree and be $100,000 in debt, because they recognize that they can accomplish what they need and want to do without wasting that amount of time and not accruing that much debt. They're going to look at the situation and be like, this is smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
You know? And I think by others' perspectives, that may seem like a simple or easy or lazier route, but I think they just have the wisdom to see and look like, you're telling me I'm supposed to do this, and I'm seeing an easier, more efficient way.
Yeah.
And I was thinking too, as you were talking about the colors, you know, I was thinking the throat chakra, you know, is the color blue, right? And we speak out. This is how we shout, or we speak our truth. And that's the perfect description of the indigos. You know, they're like expressive. And I think of crystal children, I think of a crystal as in like quartz, which is, you know, clear and white, this like white light, which is very healing. And then the rainbow children are kind of like a little bit of all the chakras. They have a little bit more of this wisdom and balance. And one of the other things is, it's said that they come in with little to no karma. And it's interesting because if we think about indigos, a lot of times I think they've had troubled pasts in this current lifetime, and maybe even in past ones, that have brought up a lot of hard learned lessons. The crystal children are coming in and really nurturing and healing themselves and that. And then you have the rainbow children that were efficient before they even got here. They were like, you know what? I'm going to clean up a bunch of my karma, heal my trauma, so that I come in and I'm ready to work on my mission. I'm ready to raise the vibration and for humanity, so that I don't have to spend as much time working and healing on myself and all my childhood issues before I can start my mission, you know? So I think it's really kind of interesting, and how their names really do blend with their skills and you know, their gifts that they have.
Definitely. So what do you feel would be a challenge for each one of those?
Oh, good question. I think for an indigo, things like government, because it's very like, you do what we say, you know, where they're being told, structure, things like, you know, government, or they might also appear that they have issues with authority. But here's the thing, I think with indigos, I think they actually like the structure when it makes sense. But if you're just telling me no, just because, and it doesn't make any sense, they're going to call you out. Like they're going to be like, that's not working for me. I don't think they're resistant to structure or rules. I think they're resistant to the old systems and rules that no longer benefit people, and actually sometimes are harmful, or just simply don't make any sense anymore. And therefore they're not working. You know, half of our laws and rules were made when we didn't have the internet, when we didn't have social media, when we didn't have billions of people on the planet. And so some of the laws and rules and things and issues these days that we have, our rules don't match, our rules don't fit. And so I think they will have issues with anything where it's forcing them to be inside of a structure or a box that really doesn't serve our vibration or the growth that humanity is transitioning to. I think that's gonna be hard for them.
I feel they can come off a little bit as like vindictive almost.
Yeah, because they will get frustrated and then lash out, especially if we're talking about children. You know, they're going to be the child where they're like, well, can I have a cookie before dinner? And the parent says no, and they have a full-blown meltdown. But I think because they're like, you're just telling me no because no. But
like, what's the logic?
Yeah, right. And so I think that it would be a really good opportunity to explain. And as soon as they understand, I want you to have your vegetables and eat something healthy so you can grow big and strong. A cookie is something that we do every once in a while for dessert, not right before we eat. You know, if you explain it, I think that they will see the logicalness in it, the beauty of the structure of it, that it has a benefit for them. And you're coming from a place of genuine love for them, like you want them to be healthy, right? And so when they see those connections, they're like, oh, okay, no big deal. You know, I think that that they will seem almost that instantly angry or vindictive, like you said. But I think it might just be that they're misunderstood.
I feel like that's the one aspect of the Indigo that I can definitely relate, because I've always, like, my dad has always told me, like, you're such a rebel, like, not in a bad way, but, you know, like, you're such a rebel. And I remember, like, one of my beefs with my dad was because he would just say no to say no. And it was like, I don't understand. Like, you need to explain to me why you're saying no, because otherwise I'm not just going to take your no just because you're a parent. Let me remind you that you are a human just the way I am. Like, I'm also a human, you know?
That's a great example.
But my mom would be the one who would be like, okay, listen, this is what actually happened, and this is why, and da-da. And I'll be like, see, this is all I needed, just to have a conversation, explain it to me. If I understand, even with punishments, like, I would negotiate my punishments, because I was like, it needs to make sense to me. Can we come to an agreement? And if I can tell you, if I can convince you that I'm not in the wrong here, then I will not be punished.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to measure it. I think one of the things that my parents used to say to me when I was younger is, it's not how you, or it's not what you said, it's how you say it.
Yes.
And so I think for me, being that empathic and feeling their feeling and feeling my feeling, it would come out with a lot more sass than I would intend. It would come out a lot more sharp. It would come out a lot more aggressive. And it was, in my attempt to express my feeling or thought about it, it would come out a little like harsh. And I didn't hear it. Like, I wouldn't hear it. They'd look at me and they'd have this face like, whoa, like, that was a bit much. And I was questioning their face. Like, I would look at them like, why are you looking at me? Like, I just said something rude. I don't understand. I just said this. And they're like, it's not what you said. And so I think that was hard for me too. Not only feeling that need to, like, say what I need to say, you know, that's the Indigo in me, you know, that's the, like, no, I'm going to say what I need to say or defend myself or whatever. But the empath, you know, that empathic side would kick in, and then I felt double, mine and theirs. And then it would come out like too much. It was not how I was saying it was not matching the situation. You know, like, it was a bit much. And so my mom would always say, like, it's not what you said, it's how you say it. And I'm like, oh, sorry. It's not what I meant. Yeah.
What about the crystal child? What would be their challenge?
So I think that they are their challenge may be, you know, that typical, the term that I hear a lot now is kind of like that snowflake. So meaning, like, they get their feelings hurt very easily and quickly. They are more compassionate. They're going to be the ones that their heart hurts when they walk by someone that they see who's homeless. They feel compelled to, like, just open their wallet and hand them everything in it. You know, it's like they feel so much compassion and that they need to help so many people. And I feel like not only is that overwhelming, because there's a lot in this world, there's a lot of suffering. And so when they feel that and not being enough, I think that may be something for them that they struggle with, is feeling the pain or suffering of others amplified, and then not feeling like they have the tools or that they're not enough to help fix it. They're going to be the ones that run around trying to help other people to a deficit for themselves, you know, to the point where they don't set healthy boundaries, and that they're running themselves ragged, and it's starting to affect them negatively, and they are just desperately trying to help others. I think that may be the one thing that crystal children, you know, it's kind of like their blessing and their curse, just like the indigos. It's like they have the voice and they'll use it even if it's a little pointed. And you know, the crystal children, I think that their gift is that they have to heal ourselves and to heal the world. But it also is like that flip coin, double-edged sword. So it can be something that if they don't understand what's mine is mine and kind of have some of those energetic boundaries, it can really backfire a little bit for them.
I had confusion is one of their biggest challenge, because like you said, I like that you know, that visual that you gave with the crystal, with the what is it called again, that crystal you
quartz, crystal quartz.
Clear quartz.
Clear quartz.
And
there you go.
because it's also an amplifier actually, and so I feel like somehow, you know, in some ways these crystal children are amplifiers, and that's why they're like, how they express themselves, like like you said, they tend to be maybe like more, or come off as more sensitive, because they will cry for you, or they will you know, they will go and avenge on your behalf, and it's like maybe you're not feeling it that intensely, but they're feeling it that intensely that they're like, you know what, I will seek that revenge for you, or I will be that warrior for you, I will be that person for you. It's like, it's almost like they take on other people's they want to take on other people's lessons and journeys, and to their deficit, like you said. And I can also relate to that aspect of the crystal children, because I had a phase where, you know, if I had like a grain of rice and someone told me, hey, I'm hungry, I'll be like, yes, please go ahead, you know, you take that grain of rice, you know, not even thinking that maybe we could split the grain of rice, or maybe come up with ways of, you know, buying more rice and buying more food for the both of us. And it would really be exhausting for me, because I would have like so much inside, and it was like all these people's emotions and things, and I'll be like, okay, well, I will do this for you. And what I found out was that I ended up being an enabler in some cases, right? And so that was my lesson.
And I think that that's a hard lesson, I think, for almost all starseeds, not even just crystals, because I think we come in with this mission, and we know that we're supposed to raise our vibration and help humanity, and, you know, dive in, you know, head first. And I think sometimes if we haven't established that healthy boundary, that, you know, it can be very draining. It can be. And I see this a lot, especially with starseeds that are parents, because parents want to do absolutely everything for their children or other people. And sometimes I'll tell my clients, like, if you're like the mother and you only have so much food, and you give every bit, just like the rice, every bit of that food away, your kids will eat, but eventually you will starve, and then they don't have a mother to provide for them. So you have to set a boundary so that they can eat and you can provide for self, because it becomes a self-sabotaging scenario then, because they're so willing to give everything that they then are so depleted that they kind of, it's like almost a self-sabotaging, like keeping them in a state of victimness, right? Because, oh, but I helped you, without avoiding to do something that would help themselves. So sometimes it can be a little tricky for them to kind of find that really healthy boundary and that healthy balance.
And rainbow children, what do you feel is their biggest challenge?
I think they're looking at the world, global, planets, animals. I mean, they're looking at everything. And they kind of came in a little born a little bit more awakened. You know, they didn't have to heal their traumas to get to this point. So I think one of their frustrations may be that the majority of people just don't get it. I feel like they're kind of scratching their heads, like, you're continuing to pollute the ocean, and your resources you're using to clean up the ocean are also polluting the ocean. Like, you know, they're looking at it like, I don't understand why you don't understand, you know? And, you know, I think that must be really frustrating.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think one of their challenges is they can see all the moving pieces and parts. They see this big, big picture. And they kind of have all of the puzzle pieces, all of the ingredients, and they have the recipe. They know how to put it all together, but finding the right people, the right connections, the right tribe, the right people that are on the same page, that are willing to act. You know, you can have all of the right ingredients, but you need the pot, you need the stove, you need, you know, you need all of the equipment and the tools. So I think that they can see it all, but they may not always have the tools. And so therefore I think one of their biggest missions is to seek out and find their tribe, their people, who's on the same page, who matches my vibration, who understands me. Because the more we have that, the more we can actually we can take action and accomplish these changes. One thing to look at a situation and be like, oh boy, that's a mess. It's another one to grab them up.
Yeah, exactly. That's true.
And so I think that they see it all, and it's not that it's not that they're not willing to grab them up, it's finding that.
Yeah.
That I think is one of probably very frustrating for them, is not having the resources and a way to connect the right people.
Yeah. I feel like to me the one that I had was boredom.
Oh,
I feel like one of their challenges might be boredom, because they remember so much about their higher being that when they come here, like you said, they see everything in such bird's eye view, or like in the big picture, that it's almost like talking to something that is primitive. It's almost like I would talk to a rock, and you're like, yes, rock, but do you not understand that in a few years from now you will become dust, and so what are you doing here, you know? Or why are you not close to the water, or something like that, right? And I also can identify with that aspect, because for me it's always been, or like in the last few years, it was like, okay, well, now I understand all this thing about me, and then what am I supposed to do with this, you know?
Right.
Like you said, like, oh yeah, I can tell you, like, this is, that's a mess. But actually going to, okay, having that link of that's a mess, it needs to get cleaned. Do I have a mop? What are my tools? Or who are the people that I need to ask? What are my resources? What are my limitations? What do I want to do about this, right? And I feel like sometimes it can be a bit more frustrating in manifesting or doing some things, because it's almost like, because you're so connected with your light body, it's almost hard to understand how things are moving so slowly.
Yes.
You know?
And I love that you brought that up, because I think a lot of people that are awakened and know that they're a starseed and a light worker, I think I can totally relate to this, because I spend, as you do, a good amount of my day being of service, using more of my higher vibrational self. This is where I reside most of the time, but I'm still human. And that in itself can be very frustrating, because I can go from channeling with my spirit guides, astro traveling and going on these, you know, getting all this information. I still have laundry to do, and I still have to feed myself. I still have to, you're like, why? You know, and it can be, it's funny, like sometimes it just makes me giggle. Like, it's kind of like, I can't believe I'm doing it. And I even will question my guides. I'm like, really, have we not come up with a better way by now? Like, I still have to do ... Like, this is kind of silly, you know? And I think that that rainbow children probably connect with that the most, because I think that they have already come in so connected that they remember how it is to be in a light body. So this human is very primitive. So the rainbow children would probably be frustrated, because they're constantly thinking like, you know, human body here, can you please hurry up? Can you please finish eating your Cheerios? Because I have to go. I have, you know, to save the world. I have busy, you know, like being impatient for the human.
That's been a lesson that that is ongoing presently, but it's really to slow down. Like every day, every moment, my spiritual guides are like, slow down, Kenny. You need to slow down, and not slowing down in the things that I want to do, but slowing down my mind. And because it's like so, I don't know, it's like so active all the time that it's like, no, you need to slow down and come back. It's almost like you're here and it's like, calm down, you're almost there. Okay, now what do you want to do from this space, you know?
And it's hard because we still have to have a human experience too.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. So what did you, when in your channeling or like in your meditation, what did you get for, what information did you get for the next wave of beings who are coming?
So I'm so excited to kind of have this conversation, because after I did that video, I was kind of thinking like, you know, there's not like, what's next? Like, so I had all these questions. And so this really kind of prompted me to like sit down, meditate, do some channeling, and really ask my guides. And so I had been calling them, because I didn't know what else to call them, kind of like this hybrid, you know, because I was thinking indigo kind of rolls into crystal, it rolls into rainbow, and we need them all. And even, you know, any starseed kind of has to relate to all of them. And so that there's this buildup, right? And so I was calling them a hybrid. And so I asked my guides, first of all, what are their names? Like, what do you call them? And they replied with quantum children.
Ooh, I like that.
And I think it's because they are so connected to their higher self, so connected to their guides. They're very well acquainted with their guides, their angels, their non-human form type guides, like they're aliens or whatever. Like they know how to download codes and information. Like they are connected. And the other thing that my guides were talking about is that they have activated quantum DNA, that they have activated in their bodies a level of DNA that stores information. So they literally can tap into this information. Like we know that even in our human form, that if you had a father that was a carpenter and the son was a carpenter, and then the grandson, even if they were given away and adopted out, that grandson will have this weird innate ability to be good at carving things in wood. And we know this. So there has to be some type of genetic generational connection to these skill sets, right? So we already know that. So when they were showing me this quantum DNA, it was almost like going beyond this human lifetime and tapping into the wisdom or knowledge, not just of my father's carpentry, but the lifetimes I have had before. And the information and the data that is stored in my DNA before. It was almost like they came through with this downloaded specialty DNA information that they kind of put into their cells and now can tap into this storage. It's kind of like their own version of the cloud. It's like their DNA is a storage of all this stuff. And so that was really fascinating to me. And they were talking about it being like quantum DNA. And so that was really, really cool.
That is interesting.
They definitely don't have karma, is what my guides were saying. So they come in, they're ready to work. They understand that they have a mission from the start. They also said that they're going to be much more likely to not want to eat meat, but also on a digestive level, something to do with the proteins. That they will actually not have or not need maybe the types of proteins to break down animal meats and things. So they were kind of explaining to me, like, it's not just like if you were a parent that has a kid that randomly at 4 years old tells you they don't want meat, it may literally not be just because they're saying that they don't want it, or I don't want to hurt the animal thing. It may literally hurt their belly. Like they can't digest it. They're not able to.
It's not a vibrational match.
Yes, exactly. Not a vibrational match. Thank you. Yeah. And so that was really interesting. I think they will have the ability to see their guides and angels very young, and they won't go through this interesting time where we question. So I think children come in so open. Children see their grandparents, even though they're passed on. They see angels and guides, and they'll tell you all kinds of stories about past lives, and they're so open. And then about 7 years old, they hit this point where they start to realize that not everybody sees what they're seeing, not everybody understands what they're saying, and they have a choice to turn the volume down, to leave it up and on, or to turn it off. And so a lot of people would say, oh, I used to do that when I was a kid, but I stopped doing that because it got uncomfortable for them, or they were made fun of or something. And so I think these particular children, these quantum children, are not having that. They come in knowing their guides, and they're not going to allow anybody to convince them that they're not talking to a straight up angel, you know? Because they know, like, they know that they can tap into other worldly energetics and energetic beings, and there's no, just as clear as day that they're talking to you, like, so that's interesting. Talking to living things is one of the things that they said too. Having the ability to talk to an animal, talk to a plant, to talk to the planet or the earth, because they resonate on an energetic level. And so they're talking to the essence, the energy, the soul of that being. And so they will literally ask like ask the grass, is today a good day to mow my lawn? And the grass will say yes or no. Like, I can see them like having a conversation, you know? That was really cool. And actually, something that I have used in the past with really young children that are very empathic, I'll, you know, set a plant in front of them and say, like, tell me about this plant, you know, and they'll start using their imagination and playing, but they'll start to say things like, well, it's really thirsty, or it has too much water or something. And they're right, you know, they know, but they think it's a story. The quantum children know
they know.
They know they're talking to the grass or the trees or the animals. So they really have this awesome ability, like their communication abilities are just off the charts, because they can literally communicate with everything. One of the other things is, I think that you'll see, they may seem to, like when they're younger, they may seem to have big imaginations, tell you all these really detailed stories. And they may even draw themselves, like if you handed the child a crayon and said, draw yourself, like a self-portrait, they may even draw themselves in non-human form.
Wow.
Because they still know, they know that they're human, but they know that they are also not. You know, that they are a soul light body. So that I saw them like kind of drawing pictures of just light.
So cool.
Or something else, you know, that resembles what they used to look like, you know? So that was really, really interesting. Obviously, you know, natural healers, calm, very prepared, very smart. But when I asked, you know, what are they here for? You know, because you have the indigos and the crystals, and we talked about each one of them having like their own gifts that they brought to the table. My guides were talking about them being the rebuilders. They're the ones that they're coming in to rebuild, to set the new structure. They're the ones that are taking all the action. You know, the rainbow is like, here's the big picture. The rainbows are kind of like the engineer, you know, with the blueprints. Here's the big picture. This is where everything needs to go. And the, you know, quantum children come in, and they're the ones that have the heavy machinery to lift all the things, to put them into place, to, you know, so that was kind of interesting. They said that they will be the rebuilders, the recreators. They will renew, you know, they will establish a renewing of.
I can really get that sense, especially with the pandemic, you know?
Yes, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like we're getting ready for them.
Exactly. We're definitely preparing, because, and if you look around, everything's falling apart. Everything's falling apart. So the groundwork that the indigos laid is really starting to come to fruition. You've got tons and tons of people awakening at a rapid rate. I mean, some people didn't even know what a chakra was, or never meditated before. 3 months later, channeling their higher selves. So
yeah. Like what?
Yeah, we've got these like awakened people just coming in. And so, you know, and then you've got the rainbow children that are like, it's not working too, you know, we've got to fix this and that. And so, yeah, you can see it's all, the groundwork is all being laid out for them.
And these conversations are also becoming more and more mainstream as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
They like structure. They like discipline. They like teamwork. They like being the leaders, but they're okay as long as it's going in the right direction. They're okay stepping back. They don't have to be that leader. And one of the other neat things that I asked my guides was, you know, if they have this ability to connect and just have this sense of knowing, what would that look like? Like if I was a parent who had a child that had this sense of knowing, you know, how would I know? What would that look like? And there's something I use it in my herbal studies. It's an actual acupuncture term in traditional Chinese medicine. It's called the four gates. And the four gates is large intestine 4, which is located between your index finger and your thumb, that pad, and on both hands. So that's 1 and 2. Okay. And then kidney, liver, spleen, liver. So your liver, 3, which is between your big toe and your second toe, but you want to slide up to where you're on the top of your foot. And that would be on the left and right. And so both hands, both feet, they call that the four gates. And it was interesting because instantly when I heard they'll understand things like the four gates, and I was like, awesome. So what the four gates do is the acupressure points on your hands, large intestine 4, those are great for headaches, for migraines, reducing pain, for letting go of like tension or things like that. The liver 3 is also one, it's on the foot, so it's very grounding, right? It's very, very grounding. And liver 3 really helps with you know, again, releasing pain, boosting the immune system, activating the immune system. And so it's really interesting. My guides were like, they will simply know. They will start to get sick and you will see this little child massaging their little hands or their little feet because they know that these points will stimulate something else in their body, the meridians and the chi, and move things around. And so it was really cool because they use that term, right? Because it's that term is a part of my world. And I know that, and we talked about this before, that our guides will use terms that we know, right? Like, I don't know anything about cars, so they're never going to give me an analogy about a car engine, right?
Yes.
So I know the four gates, so that's why they said that. But the interesting thing was, like, they showed me this image that these children almost know how to operate the machine we call human to like a master level, just like I just mentioned with the four gates. Like they will know like, oh, I'm feeling this or that. I'll press here, drink water, and hop on one foot and I'll be fine. Like, they know.
And you're like, what?
And you're looking at them like, what are you talking about? And then
like, do you not know this? You've been here for years.
Exactly. It's almost like they were these master level mechanics of this human body. And so I think the really amazing thing will be when they grow up, because I think our modern medicine is going to take a huge turn because they're going to see the benefits and understand all of the aspects of natural healing and Western medicine and, you know, all of the Eastern, you know, influences and traditional China. They're going to be able to see the strengths in all of them and really start bringing them together because they simply know. And when they grow up, they'll start to find the empirical evidence and research to support what they already thought they already knew. So I think it was just kind of interesting to, you know, ask my guides, like, you know, what are they going to look like? Or, you know, what are their personalities? What are their strengths going to be? So cool. So fascinating.
Wow. When I asked, I didn't have any name for them, but what they showed me was just like this, this white being, or being of just like a light, pure light. And to me, it's, it really represented like creation, because I've astral projected somewhere, or like maybe astral traveled to a place where it felt like the beginning of time and the end of time at the same time, but it was just like pure white and silence. And then from there, I understood kind of like maybe one of the reasons why creation wanted to replicate itself, or to start like, you know, duplicating itself, to see like, to really know what it is, right? And so when they showed me this being, it really was like, wow, they're almost like the perfect manifestation of creation, you know? It's like they're just there, they're in tune, they don't need to be anything more or less than what they are, and that's exactly what they're reflecting in you as well. It's almost like they can energetically go into you and pull your highest self, and almost like force you to come to your full potential as well, but in a very graceful way. And however that will manifest in like different things, like I don't know, whether it's like in our medicine, like you said, or like maybe like different structures, like I'm really kind of excited to see what that will look like. But they're just like, they feel like I don't know, they're just too cool, man. They're just really cool. What do you feel would be their challenge, if you even feel that they will have any challenges?
Yeah. Oh gosh. I would think that their challenges wouldn't be within, it would be without. Mm-hmm. So not inside self, but outside of self. So what I mean is that they themselves may not have any necessarily big obstacles or challenges. Their challenge would be others, the same page, getting on board, letting go, helping others, letting go of what they're still clinging on to, like those old broken systems, their old limiting beliefs, all of those things. Like that may be the challenge, because they're going to come in and say, not only do we need to do things differently, but here's how we're going to do it, you know? And there's a lot of people that are probably gonna be resistive to that. And they're like, no, but this is how we've always done it. And they're like, I know it's not working. This is how we're going to do it, you know? And so I think resistance, I think a little bit of that last little bit of resistance, which is very fear-based, right? You know, us holding on to the old things, knowing that change is hard and sometimes scary. We're not quick to let go, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to have any challenges, except for the rest of us that may not be yet at that level. But I think what is exciting is if we as starseeds and lightworkers can go through these phases on our own of each section, you know, the indigo, the crystal, the rainbow, you know, I myself am looking forward to maybe, you know, getting a glimpse into that, you know, higher level of understanding or thinking. You know, I'm like, if this is the pattern that we all get to go in, I'm like, dang, I'm excited. Like,
I'm in.
Myself. I know, I'm in. I want to like squeeze on myself and know I can heal myself.
Right?
This is awesome. Yeah, definitely.
I feel like
really cool to see what they do.
Yeah. I feel like one of their challenges would be like you said, it's not within, it's really without. And it's almost like, because I feel like they're almost like auditors in a sense, you know, they will act like auditors, where it's almost like, you know, let's say, Canny, we said that at 32 years old you'd be here, so now I'm coming into your life and you're not there, and it's like, okay, that's okay, but what are you going to do? What's your plan? And if you're in resistance and you're like, well, no, you know, no, I'm not ready to do this, and it's almost going to create like almost not a frustration, like a frustration, but in an experience, like not something that is attached to them, but almost like, I don't understand, but this is what we agreed upon. So I'm not too sure why we're even having this conversation, or why you're even reacting this way, because I don't care, but you said that that's what you would be doing, you know?
Yeah.
And so I feel like it might be almost like a lonesome journey. And so it's very important for them to find like-minded people, or people, you know, from their same vibration, or even like all these other indigo crystal, other starseed children, I guess, or beings.
Yeah, I think one of their benefits will be to simply be a reflection or a mirror.
Yes.
Because that way they, you know, they come in and they're, you know, prepared and have all this stuff. And any of us that have been resistive to standing into our truth and stepping into our potential, you know, sometimes it's easier to do that when we see others around us that are doing it, that are
Yeah.
accomplishing it. And
Yeah.
we're like, oh, okay, now I know what it looks like.
I
And so they
remember.
may be really helpful in that way, where they're
Yeah.
like, they have arrived. You know, I always say,
Yes.
I feel like I'm never going to arrive. Like, we're always growing and developing.
Yes.
But, you know, in a sense, it feels like they have kind of arrived. And so if you're looking at them and you're like, oh man,
It reminds you.
yeah, it reminds you like, oh, okay, I need to kind of step up my game.
Yeah,
so I
yeah,
think
yeah.
it's a really good benefit, and not anything that they have to actually do, just being present,
Just
like
being.
just being.
Yeah,
You look at them
that's the
and you're
word
like,
I
oh,
had, just
okay,
being. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But that would be very, very lonely. And I think a lot of Starseeds and Indigo and Crystal and Rainbow, I think they've all had that moment where they felt like, people don't get me, I don't have my tribe, I learn differently, I experience the world differently, until they get to a mature point where they find like-minded.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that would definitely be, I think, one of their challenges. That's a good point.
So to kind of wrap up this conversation, what would you say that, what are the things that you feel needs to be said right now to everybody that may be identifying as a starseed child or being?
I think, well, let me connect a little bit, and I'll see if my guides also want to kind of say anything.
Yeah.
So my guides are reminding me that we always have the answers from within. So, and there will become a certain point in your journey where that is the only place you will find the answers. You'll have read all the books, done all the things, all the meditations, and it will be at a point where you will have to have those experiences to go within, and that your within reality becomes more of a norm than your external reality. And so they're reminding me that for all of the Starseeds, we have this one human life experience, but if we go within, we have the wisdom of every lifetime we've ever lived, of every experience we've ever had. It's almost like the universe being within, it's like this vast, endless amount of growth and potential and possibilities and wisdom. And to not get caught in the human, to not get caught with the external and the outside world, and but to, anytime we feel that disconnect, or we are questioning or wondering what to do, or anything like that, to instantly go within. Because we already are equipped, we already have the messages and the information there. So yeah, and that's a great reminder. Even like for me, sometimes I get caught up in my human and have a busy day, and it's like I feel more normal when I can sit down and meditate again and come back to center. So yeah, I think that would be helpful for anybody out there. And if you grew up like this, resonating, or you have children like that, to really start to look at them and yourself as this beautiful and amazing light body being who chose to come here at this time to have these experiences, and give yourself and those around you this sense of compassion and grace as they're kind of figuring their journey out and figuring out their mission. Yeah.
I feel like, for anybody who can identify as a starseed, or anybody really that can connect and relate to the conversation that we've had, what has been coming through for me, it's really like slowing down, like now more than ever, because everything kind of feels accelerated. And with that, yes, there's a sense of almost like urgency to kind of come into our higher selves, or being more of service. But at the same time, it's almost like it can almost feel like we're being attacked by more distractions and more things, more nonsense at the same time, And I feel like now, what they've shown me, my spiritual guides, is like, it's really time to really like tune into some type of spiritual practice. Like you really need to connect with your higher self, your heart space, and really start going within and making the time. Because I hear like a lot of times like people say, oh, I don't have the time for a meditation, I don't have the time for this. But, and that's okay, but it's also realizing that if you don't make that the time, then what you're giving time will become more of you. You know, like you will become more of that. So if in your life something is not working and, you know, you're constantly saying, I don't have the time for like a spiritual practice, you're saying, I don't have the time for myself. And so you will just become distractions and just like, what is it like, oh, when you chop a chicken's head and then the body just keeps like
running in circles.
Yes, exactly. That's the imagery that I have. And but we really need to make what do you call it, like a priority to slow our minds down and really just start
running
breathing
like the chicken with its head cut off.
exactly that's the expression. And and then really asking ourselves, like, how can we serve what we perceive to be you know a handicap, almost like a struggle or a challenge, or you know, whatever you're going through, like how can you serve that? Like, what did you come here to transcend or transmute or change, or what is it that you came to how did you come to serve? And really embracing our emotions and not making, even if you're like depressed, like highly depressed, or like you have a lot of anxiety, or you know, you feel maybe like suicidal, it's just realizing that it's not you. Just like calm down. You need to find a way to calm down and then just come back to your own space, and then seeing like, okay, again, like how can I be of service to this whole experience? I know that if I'm feeling this way, someone else is feeling that way. So if I could help that person, how would I help that person? And then do that for yourself first, and then you can go, you know, and help others.
Yeah. And I think that's how a lot of us light workers and starseeds came in early on, was figuring out our own stuff.
Yes.
Navigating that, and then realizing, oh, you know, like I figured out my recipe. Let me share it, you know, in case that helps somebody else.
Yeah. And finding your own kind, you know, I think even when we talked, I told you, like, you know, for me, it's been really a focus for the past year, like finding my kind. And my kind is just people who are the same vibrations as you. And it doesn't mean that it has to be like highly spiritual people or whatever. If that's your thing, that's your thing. But just like finding even people who are positive, you know, some people who bring you joy, like someone that you can stand next to and you're like, oh my God, I feel so good, you know, whether you talk or you don't talk, but that is like more than enough, you know?
Yeah, that I think is really powerful, to find that within yourself, you know, the moments, the lifestyle, the actions, the words that bring you joy, but to find that in your environment and to find that around you, especially if you're a sensitive starseed, you've got to really take control of that, because otherwise it just creates a lot of chaos and a lot of suffering. And so, definitely being around those people that, you know, finding those people that really do bring you joy. That's huge. Yeah.
Any last words?
I am just grateful I'm here. This was so fun. I'm like, I had such a good time. I could talk for hours about all kinds of fun spiritual stuff. But no, I hope my hope and I guess intention is that, you know, this conversation, you know, sparks or inspires others, or validates something for them, or supports them along their journey, or excites them, so that, you know, they can go meditate or find their tribe or understand their child better or something like that. And so that's kind of, I think, always my hope is that whatever I'm doing is being of service. So I hope this was awesome for everyone, and that it was of service in some way to them, and it rang true to their heart chakra, and that they enjoyed it on all levels.
I definitely know that it will do all that and more, because even the way that this whole connection between you and I happened, it was so smooth and so effortless for me, and I'm sure for you too, that, you know, it's one of those things that maybe like sometimes, I know for me, sometimes, you know, I get guidance and I'm like, but what does that mean? Or, but really, and then you kind of surrender to it and you're like, you know what, if this happens this easily, it's because it's needed, you know?
Yep,
it's
that's how
time
I
for
always
it.
know.
And then yes, and like you said, like I really hope that we can validate someone's experience or bring them comfort or hope. And thank you so much for coming on to this podcast.
No, thank you for inviting
I
me.
feel like I still feel like really excited, and like you said, I feel like we could go on and on and on. I feel like maybe this might be like a 2-part podcast. I don't know.
I would love to. That would be great. Yep, totally down.
And then let's we'll definitely stay in touch. We have I think we have another podcast that we'll be recording, which I'm also excited for.
Yes, that one will be good.
And I will link all your social media and other links that you want for people to find you. And and again, I'm so grateful for your time. I'm grateful for everything that you've been through in this lifetime, for, you know, and sharing and coming really out and being seen, really, to allow us to see you, and also kind of reminds us, you know, reminding us of the work that we're doing.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, I think all light workers hope that, you know what I mean? Like, I think we all kind of come here hoping that, that we make a difference, and that we're not just being seen for ourselves, but being seen so that others can find us. You know? So amazing. No, you too. I think I'm excited to work with you some more, and this will be a good relationship.
Yes. Thank you so much to our listeners. If you have tuned in on YouTube, I'm still new at this, so please like, subscribe, share, I think. And if you're listening on the Apple Podcasts, please consider leaving us a positive review so that we can share more positive content. If you're listening on Spotify or anywhere else, thank you for your ongoing support. We love you, and we're sending you all the most positive energy that we can and you can allow yourself to receive. And until the next episode, take care.